Hey guys, what's going on? So the whole topic of drug addiction has been popping up in my mind a lot lately. So there's the question, are drugs in and of itself the cause of drug addiction? Or are there other factors that come into play? I've noticed it's very hard talking to most people about drugs in a rational and logical way without them kind of rolling their eyes at you and especially because of their ideologies and how they just cling on to it, which I think is a result of all the fucking many decades of political propaganda against drugs. I'm not saying that drugs are good. You don't have to be a rocket scientist to know that most drugs are bad for you, but they are nowhere near as bad as what the mainstream media has you to believe. This even includes the really hard shit like heroin and meth. Yeah, they're really horrible for you, but they're not as addicting and as terrible to your life as they tell you. And in fact, most people who try them will not become addicted to them. But the government has been very infamous in kind of blowing things out of proportion. For example, there was this one infamous experiment of where they got a rat, put him inside a cage by himself, and there were two water bottles. One was filled with just normal water, and one was filled with cocaine-laced water. Okay, so you can see where this is going. So pretty much they find at the end of the experiment that 9 out of 10 rats got completely hooked on the cocaine water, and most rats in fact died. And they essentially said to the public that this could happen to us if we ever try cocaine. And so Professor Bruce Alexander looked at this experiment and go, something's not right here. So he went off to investigate. And even if you think about it with logic, like if you put a rat by itself in an enclosed cage, and you've got one normal bottle of water and you've got the other one with drugs that make you feel euphoria. So no shit you're gonna choose the drug water. I know I would. So anyway, Bruce Alexander, he kind of recreates this experiment in an unbiased way. So he'd get the rat, put him by himself in the cage, same ordeal as the last experiment, but in this other cage, he'd have like this rat park with a whole community of rats. There'd be like hamster wheels and all this fun shit that rat likes. So it's pretty much Disneyland for rats. For both cages, he gave the rats the option to drink the cocaine water or the normal water, and obviously every rat is going to try the cocaine water because they don't know what the fuck it is. But what they found at the end of the experiment, that less than a quarter of the rats in the rat park got hooked on the cocaine water, and there were 0 fatalities. My man Bruce, he went one step further, and so he got the rat put in a cage by himself, left him there with the cocaine water for 57 days. So this poor rat, or lucky rat, depending on your perspective, was in a cage for 57 days drinking cocaine water every day, right? And then after the 57 days were up, Bruce would get the rat, plop him over to the rat park. After some time he'd return to normal, just from being put in a different environment. And there's always going to be these people who are going to argue with you and say, oh, but those are rats, what about humans? Well, there was a very similar experiment to this called the Vietnam War, right? So Time magazine, remember, they reported that heroin was as common as chewing gum. And in fact, around 20% of the US soldiers were completely hooked on it. Okay, and then after the war was over and they got back home, 95% of the soldiers that were hooked on heroin completely stopped. Like without even rehab or anything. 95%. So what happens when you take someone from a hostile environment to a nice one? Even popular neuroscientist Dr. Carl Hart states that drugs themselves only partially cause drug addiction. Misery, poverty, and the environment plays a much bigger role. It is no coincidence that there is higher drug use in poor rural areas versus suburban areas. I mean, even if you think about it logically, if the drug's chemical hook onto your brain was the sole reason why we get addicted to it, then shouldn't nicotine patches work 100% of the time? instead of the small 17% of people who actually kick the habit of smoking using these patches. It's 17%. And that's not even accounting for the placebo effect and the will to wanting to quit and all these other factors. See? So even from scientific studies, they're suggesting that drugs themselves play a very small role. I think that it's environment and disconnection one feels plays a huge role in it. The euphoria and pleasure that drugs can offer you is very hard to compete with. So if you're in a shitty environment and you've got nothing else, what other option do you have? Because drugs are fucking amazing. If you've got a shitty life, which you get no pleasure from, then naturally people are going to turn to drugs. And it doesn't help with our attitude towards drug addicts and how we shun them, because all that does is just delve them deeper into their addiction. They need social support and a positive environment. At least give them a fighting chance of beating their addiction. Even science has proved over and over again that lack of social support greatly weakens your immune system and makes you prone to many psychological and physical illnesses, and can further deepen someone's depression. I remember when I was a teenager, I was like really hooked on weed. And I know it's like not crack cocaine or anything like that. I've got a really addictive personality. It might as well have been like heroin or something. I wasn't smoking just on a daily basis, but like all day, every day, and I couldn't do anything. Like it completely controlled my life, right? And every time I'd get busted smoking weed, Mum would just go fucking psycho on me. She'd yell at me, growl me, ban me from seeing all my friends. Pretty much make my house into this prison. Did this help me quit weed? No! Hell no. In fact, it made me want to smoke weed even more. The only thing that Mum's attitude did was make me much more careful and cautious about smoking weed. Like my ninja skills that I developed of sneaking around smoking weed was like an art form. So this attitude of just gunning down on me just made matters so much worse, when all I wanted was just to feel connected, to talk to someone. I just wanted Mum to kind of talk to me as a human being or as a friend, and kind of at least try to look at things from my perspective. And I'm by no means blaming her for my weed addiction in any way, shape or form, because I completely take full responsibility for all the bad shit I've done in my life. I'm just saying that it would have helped. And my whole point of telling you guys this story is just to emphasize the fact that environment plays a huge role in drug addiction. So you can see how throwing a drug addict into a jail cell makes matters so much worse. And what's even really fucked up is the logic behind drug laws. To stop us from harming ourselves from doing drugs, we're going to further harm you by throwing you in a cage, giving you a criminal record, and fucking up your life. But that's a whole other topic, so I'm not going to get onto the war of drugs here because I get like really amped up about it. So that'll be in future videos. But addiction doesn't just lie with drugs. Addiction's everywhere. You can get addicted to practically anything in life. You can get addicted to sex, to the internet, to video games, to fucking rubbing your dick, man. Who knows? Anything. Does this mean that all these activities have like this invisible chemical hook that grabs onto our brain that makes us physically addicted to it? Or is it something much deeper than that? I think people just really love to blame drugs, and especially because it's been ingrained in our subconscious mind for many decades now. We have to stop demonizing this thing, because in the end of the day, drugs is just a chemical substance. It's like the same logic of saying money is the root of all evil. Last time I checked, money is literally pieces of paper. It's our relationship and perception and our love and greed for it which creates so many problems. Kind of the same with drugs. Our relationship with drugs that creates problems, not the actual drug itself. I mean, you can give the most addicting drug in the world to like a Buddhist monk. Guarantee you, he will not become addicted. Why would he if he's fulfilled and happy in life? You know what I mean? And that's not to say that people who do drugs are unhappy and unfulfilled. It's the people who get addicted to drugs tend to be unfulfilled and unhappy. But anyway, that's my 2 cents. Thanks for you guys who've watched this far and have tolerated my ranting. please share and subscribe. It would be much appreciated. Definitely making a lot more videos in the future. I've written a blog on this topic which goes a bit more in depth, so check that in the description below. And yeah, thank you very much. See you guys next time.